All right, welcome in. How we doing today? Welcome. Nervex, how you doing, buddy? Welcome. Today, we're going to be exploring some Unity tutorials. Now, I've done quite a few things in Unity the last month or so. And what I really want to teach myself is making animations. And not just like telling a character how to do something, but incorporating like a timeline, a series of assets moving, not just one asset, music, sound effects, adding visual effects, a little bit of everything. So the Unity team provided this tutorial, or I should say a kind of like a starter set of how to do animation, making animation. So we're going to be walking through step by step some of the tutorials you can find online. And I'm hoping to pick up some new things. But this is a sample project that's currently streaming, I guess you could say, a timeline. So a pre-made animation. I did not make this. This is like a tutorial. So if I were to look at the timeline here, so I did just kind of interrupt the animation, so I apologize if you're watching that. I want to see if I can like watch the timeline play. So it looks like it's referencing scenes. So we have like an opening scene. We have, it looks like a director on the right side. And even in play mode, we can stop and start this. Now I see we have an audio track. I was curious why this said none on the bottom left, but by clicking on the track itself, I can see that there's start clip. I can even scrub through the timeline here. So we have tons of different probes, so we can learn more about, you know, lighting and how it bounces off of things. Looks like we have the camera, which they put in a photography layer. So these are all layers. Cyclo. So it looks like the cyclo, which I've never heard that term before, is this large kind of ring. And so it's also hiding things behind it. So we can see there's a screen behind it that is kind of like being projected on a smaller curved screen. Okay. We also have a grid on the ground. It's masked. Just happens to be a... Well, it has animations? No? Why is there an animator on it? Interesting. Alright, let's keep playing it. So that was a nice addition with this camera here. Now if I click into this layer, are we able to click the camera? So moving around the scene view, I can click the camera. And we saw it animate, so that's what I'm very curious on how it's doing that. It's not a literal camera. Okay, so it's quite, frankly, just kind of like spawning game objects. Like this is a fake game object. Ding dong diddly, what's up, dude? We're learning animations. And like how to more specifically create animations. And so I'm going to be going through a tutorial or two today. So now we have just some fake gizmos. So there's like the literal gizmos, which allow me to move it in the space. And then for the sake of this cinematic that Unity has provided, this is a template. You have all of these various kind of like imaginary gizmos. Okay, so we'll keep playing it. So how do I go back? Because we're still in play mode, hence why this green screen. Polka Dot Portal, it will allow games from different engines to be accessible from each other. Unity games will be accessible to UR5 games and back. Polka Dot Portal. I haven't heard of that. Let me give it a quick search. Web3 blockchain networks. No, I'm not seeing what you're referencing specifically. Unless this is it, which happens to be like a Web3. Okay, so clicking back onto our main scene here, I can press play again. Keep watching. Interesting. It's having a hard time keeping up. Like might be just too high quality here. Send a link on Twitter when you have the time. Yeah, ding dong diddly, I'll check it out. Thank you. That sounds interesting. So all of these are separated into like these game object-esque scenes, which is pretty cool. I like the way they are presenting this. The camera itself isn't moving much, so I'll have to do my own research on how to move the camera and provide camera effects. Everything else is basically being spawned and animated inside of these game objects. So if I were to toggle this on and off, and I could, for example, hide this character. He seems to have lighting and VFX attached to him. It's got a bone system. Character renderer. So he's got his own bones. He has like a... Wow, that's a lot of bones. Interesting. So it's like each part of his leg, every curve has like its own bone. Okay, I'm just poking around for now, trying to understand this. Keep playing it. Okay, we're in the last scene here, which might be like an outro or a credit scene. And so looking at this, it's just kind of like scrolling it in 3D space. And we're locked by what the camera sees anyway. Looks pretty cool. And it just ends. But it didn't remove us from play mode, so that's something to keep in mind too. So we have like a fade out. And if I click into this layer, we don't really get to see what's happening. That's interesting. We have like one FX layer. Okay. Well, we're gonna be going through the tutorial now that we've watched the animation. Hey, Go West. Good morning. Welcome. Ikion Art, how you doing? Okay, so on the Unity website, they have tons of tutorials where you can learn anything and everything. Right now, I'm going to be going through this tutorial. Cinematic content creation with sequences. So this is a beginner level tutorial. In short, introductory learning experience, you'll explore the Cinematic Studio sample, that's what we just watched, and use some of Unity's key cinematic features to get familiar with a cinematic built on sequences, create and adjust your own content within the sample, export a video and other data from the sample. So, let's give it a look. It's an hour-long tutorial, but I think we'll breeze through it. So we're going to have some light background music. Try lo-fi today. Cinematic Studio template groups together a set of features that makes movie making a first-class experience within the Unity editor, along with sample content to demonstrate their use. In this tutorial, you'll learn more about the Cinematic Studio template and the features it uses, and create new Unity project from the template. So we've already done this. If you're new, you'll need to download. You'll need the HDRP render pipeline. That's the one we already have, and we have it open. What does the Cinematic Studio template include? Cinematic Studio template includes a timeline, the backbone of any cinematic. Sequences, a workflow tool to keep your movie's editorial content organized. Alright. Recorder, to output videos, stills, AOVs, and more. Alembic support, to import and export complex animations. FBX exporter, to round-trip content to 3D modeling software. Cinemachine, Unity's camera system for framing and following cinematic action. The high-definition render pipeline. The Mitch L. sample movie, a made-with-Unity cartoon, which uses all of the above features. What will I learn? In short, learning experience, you'll explore the concepts and features of the Sequences workflow tool and the recorder. Through the provided sample movie, by the end of the project, you'll be able to confidently navigate through the structure of a cinematic made sequence, create a self-contained animated asset using the Sequences tool, create and manage non-destructive variations of your cinematic content, and explore a video of your cinematic, as well as other data usable for editorial tasks. Sign me up. Alright, so we already have the template, so we should be able to skip this one. You should find overview information about the Cinematic Studio sample in the inspector window. If this is not present, go to the project window and select the README. In the inspector, select Load Sample Scene. Alright, we've got the sample scene loaded properly now. Anything else we should know before we get started? Salter D, what's happening? Welcome in, man. We're going through the HDRP tutorial for the Cinematic Studio. Jayonha, good evening. Welcome. Okay. Now you're ready to go. In the next tutorial, you'll explore the sequences. Okay. Very clear. Thank you. Thank you, Unity. Panda Pops, what's happening? Yeah, we're learning animations. This is super simple, like beginner level stuff. If you guys are interested in, I guess, this specific tutorial, I'll drop this link. Let's see if this goes anywhere. Nope. Still loading. Well, if you guys are interested in checking out Learn Unity, apparently this link doesn't work. Here we go. So this is the website we're using. Alright, moving on. Now that you've got the Cinematic Studio template, in this tutorial, you'll identify various cinematic related windows and features, navigate the structure, and find sequence assets available in the project. Navigate to the ones used in the sequences of the movie. Let's review the editor interface. First, let's take a few minutes to review the editor interface elements. Locate the 4 windows that are available by default: hierarchy, scene, view, game view, and inspector. Yay, review! Alright, scene view, it's going to be this window on the left. Game view on the right. Inspector, this is basically when I click things. It's going to give me information about what I've clicked. Then the hierarchy is over here on the far left, which is basically everything in my game. And so in this particular game, it's a cinematic. Cool. Let's locate the cinematic helpers window. This mostly gives shortcuts to change the layouts according to your current task. So that's going to be this right here. Okay, cool. Shortcuts to change the layouts. It's very helpful. Alright, let's see what the other layouts look like. But then we'll end with cinematic. So when I'm editing animations, this is the layout we'll use. I'm editing lighting. We can see a light explorer at the bottom here. And then finally, with the audio, we have an audio mixer. So it's essentially pulling up windows as I need them by clicking these quick access layouts. Good to know. Locate the sequences window. Nice. You can use the structure section to create sequences and build the structure of your cinematic. Okay. So that's where we create new sequences. Find the asset collection section. It corresponds to the available content that you can use. Alright, let's take a quick peek. So we have our sequences. So I can just click these to go into each of the individual game objects, or sequences, I suppose. And we can see layers, much like a normal timeline. Then we have sequence assets. And so these are my various assets that I can add, which it appears to be more like a project kind of folder structure here. However, each one of these does appear to have its own timeline. So it looks like I'll have to be setting this up in advance before I can, animate things. Alright. And then we have the sequence assembly window. This allows you to populate your sequences with sequence assets. Hi, Sparky Snickle. Good morning. So essentially, it's giving me the ability to add from my asset collections into my timeline. Next, find the timeline window. You can use this to manipulate the sequences and their content over time. Great. Notice the last window available by default in the Unity editor, the project window. You can access it from a set of tabs. Very good. That's how I can access the files. Alright, so we're going to play the sample movie again. and watch the movie in the game view. So let's watch it one more time. And I'm going to be watching the timeline. Just trying to understand it a little bit better. It's a very good cinematic. Alright, and that's it. Okay. Here's our camera. I'm just kind of like poking around the scene right now. Back to the tutorial. Welcome in, Mosquita. Good morning. Okay, so navigating through the structure. You can understand it a little bit better. This is the root cinematic. Interestingly enough, I don't have the same icons. That's not a big deal, but it's something I wish I had, because these definitely appear to be more cinematic in nature. Expand the structure. Contains 7 sequences, listed in the order they were created. Notice that the timeline window shows the same 7 sequences as separate clips. So we can see the clips here. So if we were to scrub, we would be able to see the movie play forward and backward through the various sequences. In the hierarchy window, notice how the game objects activate and deactivate according to the sequence. When you finish scrubbing, leave the timeline playhead in the range of SO3. In the sequences window, in the structure section, select the sequence 02. Notice that the timeline window adapts to its current content to display the timeline.
Keep your secrets.
What? Oh. So that brought us into sequence 02. So that's the breadcrumb it's pointing it out up at the top. Notice the warning icon. It means the game view doesn't currently show the content, as you previously left the timeline playhead in the range of SO3. In the timeline window, click anywhere on the ruler to place the timeline playhead in the context of the current scene. Okay. You can now scrub the playhead to manually play this current sequence forward and backwards. Continue the navigation through the timeline window in the breadcrumb, select the upper level. This gives you access to the timeline of the current sequence's parent, which is the master sequence. In the timeline, double-click on a clip that represents the sequence. This gives you access to the timeline of the targeted sequence. Cool. The Assets Collection section of the Sequences window groups assets that are readily usable in sequences. These assets are called sequence assets and are grouped in categories called asset collections. Let's explore the assets collections. In the sequence window, notice the various types of asset collections: character, effects, lighting, photography, prop set, and audio. Expand the character assets. Okay. Notice that the sequence asset has two variants, Chicken SO4 and Chicken SO3. These two sequence asset variants are built from the original sequence asset and depend on it, but they include variations in their timeline and properties. You can use variants as independent versions of the same character across the movie, or as swappable alternatives of the same sequence asset to refine the movie content. Continue to explore the asset character collection. Notice Mitchell, the sequence asset, has 6 variants, and the T-Rex has no. Explore the other asset collections to see all the sequence assets that are readily available in the project. Okay. The creative content of the movie consists of sequence assets assembled in the various sequences of the movie structure. Let's explore some of the movie content. In the Sequences window, select the Season SO3 sequence. Look at the Sequence Assembly window. This window lists all the sequence assets currently used in the SO3 sequence, grouped by sequence collection type, and indicates which variant of each sequence asset is precisely used. In the character section,
then, keep your secrets.
Secret. In the character section, expand the variant dropdown of Mitchell. Okay. Notice that all the variants of the Mitchell sequence asset are available for selection, but the one selected is SO3. T-Rex, just the original. Notice that the T-Rex sequence asset has no variants available here, as you've seen it when exploring the asset collection. Selected variant is actually the original sequence asset. In the timeline window, expand the character trap group. The tracks in this group correspond to all the sequence assets of the character. Each one contains a single clip that responds to the sequence asset variant currently selected in the sequence assembly window. Double click on this guy. This gives you access to the timeline of the targeted sequence asset variant in the context of the sequence. Cool.
Alright then, keep your secrets.
Okay, every time I say that, we'll disable it. Yeah, Panda Pups, it's voice activated. Another voice activated one I have is Sacrifice.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Or Pizza.
Pizza time.
Technology is so much fun. Complete. Thanks, Sultry. It's worth noting that that's using the Twitch integration. Although it is voice activated, so I guess it isn't using it. But I set all that up through Twitch. No, I didn't. I used a streamer bot. So I'm using a bot called streamer.bot. And so it's doing all the work behind the scenes. So it's just listening for my voice. No Twitch required. Now that you've explored the main concepts and features of sequences, you're ready to start creating. In this tutorial, you'll create a new sequence asset and add it to a sequence of the movie. Yay! Create an empty sequence asset. Sequence assets are self-contained by design, which means you can consider them as containers you can fill with your creative content. You first need to create an empty sequence asset. I'll try, Panda. In the sequences window, select add and then new sequence. And we're going to add new sequence asset character. We're going to name the new sequence asset Sneaky Chicken. This is going to be in the sequence assets. Set in the sequences window. Sequences window. This one here. So we're going to do right click create sequence. Huh. In the sequences window, select add, and then select new sequence asset character. So it's this one, but I don't have that option. So maybe it's right here. So because they split these two windows, the tutorial is actually incorrect. And that actually threw me off. So this is incorrect. I need to make sure to add that to the feedback. So they basically gave us two different panels here. And so this is the button I was supposed to click, but the tutorial says to click this one. Anyway, create character, Sneaky Chicken. Name the sequence Sneaky Chicken. Content you're going to be putting in the sequence asset is a model prefab. A best practice in Unity is to work with prefab variants of model prefabs instead of the model prefabs themselves. To create a prefab variant, in the project window, open the Assets Mitchell L Resources Characters folder. And then we're going to right-click the Rig Chicken model prefab and select Create Prefab Variant. Create, and then prefab variant. We're going to rename it My Chicken. To fill and edit your sequence asset with the content you just prepared, from the Sequences window, open the sequence asset in prefab edit mode. From the Sequences window, open the sequence asset in prefab edit mode. Why does it say from the Sequences window? Shouldn't have to do that. I know what it's trying to tell me, but this phrase is also incorrect. So this should say inspector window. So I found 2 errors in this one. I should write these down. Pull up my notepad. And then what was the first? First one was here. This one's supposed to be sequence assets. Cool. Well, I am grateful for this tutorial, so I'm going to put this into the feedback. Because it's literally mentioning the wrong windows. Alright, so now that we have our prefab open, from the Sequences window, open the sequence asset in prefab edit mode. Got it. Under Asset Collections, double-click on the sequence Sneaky Chicken sequence access. That's a mouthful. Under Asset Collections. From the Sequences window. Under Asset Collections. Oh, it's just telling me to double click on it. I should also just clarify that in my feedback too. Okay, so now we're drag and dropping the My Chicken asset from the project window. Why is it telling me to do that?
Can I get a oh yeah?
Yo, what up, Kay? Oh yeah. So I don't know why it's telling me to drag and drop this, because it's already in my scene. My Chicken asset from the project window to... I think this is specifically for... Like, it's already in the scene, so I don't have to do this step, and so that's why I'm getting a little bit confused here. But I'm going to move on. If I get stuck, I get stuck, whatever. Set the scale of the instantiated asset to 0.2 in all directions. Very good. And then save it. Cool. Add the sequence asset to a sequence. To add your sequence asset to an existing sequence of the sample movie, in the sequence setting window, select SO1. In the sequence assembly window, now showing the sequence assets of SO1, add the sneaky chicken. Alright, so we'll go to our timeline. And they're saying SO1, yeah? We'll then add in the characters here. Sneaky chicken. And now that's going to add him to the sequence. Okay, next step is to animate him. Hooray! This one... I'm gonna copy-paste the notes I took. I had some technical issues. Morning! How's your little vacay there, Mr. K? I still haven't heard back. I haven't gotten an email. I know you're curious about that, as am I. Okay, in this tutorial we'll record short animation. We're ready to create and record a short animation to bring this sequence asset to life. In the following steps, you're going to edit your sequence asset directly in the sequence you added it. Hey, glad to hear it, Kay, at any time. You're going to edit the sequence asset directly in the sequence where you added it. Keep the context of the cinematic timeline through this process. You must lock the timeline window. Okay. This keeps the cinematic loaded even when you select and iterate other game objects in the hierarchy. Let's adjust the character position for the shot. Now you're ready to get started. First, let's adjust the character position for the shot. In the sequences window, select SO1. To be able to see the chicken in the scene, you need to ensure to place the timeline playhead somewhere within SO1. Locate the chicken within the sequence asset that you added in the sequence. And expand the character prefab. Okay. Okay, so I do not have the prefab variant. So we're gonna probably have to go back a few steps. This might have been where I got confused. But I think I see where I went wrong. Okay. I think that was an easy fix. So basically, I needed to drag and drop it into the prefab variant. And so now it's appearing as it should. Okay, place the chicken closer to the camera. In the hierarchy, let's set the Z position to 5.5. Prepare the character for animation. Next, you need to prepare the character for the animation. In the sequences window, select SO1. In the timeline window, expand the character group, and in the sneaky chicken track, double-click on the sneaky chicken timeline clip. Okay. The timeline window now shows the empty timeline of the sequence asset used. Add an animation track to it. Select the plus button and select animation track. Drag and drop the My Chicken prefab from the hierarchy into the animation track. Select Create Animator on My Chicken. So we need to drag and drop it to the animation track header field, specifically. There it is. This sounds so surreal. The tutorial, Panda? Record the animation. Now we re-record the animation. In the animation track header, double-click My Chicken Animator. Just all the chickenness. Yeah, it's the way they phrased everything. It's making me chuckle. Like I enjoy the humor, you know, behind the tutorial. Let's double-click the animator, and this selects the targeted prefab in the hierarchy. In the animation track header, click the record button. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to follow their framing. So 96. Y position, -04. 102, 0. And then 144, -104. This should tell the chicken to like put its head in and out of the screen. Okay, so I don't think I saved the keyframes. To set each keyframe, place the timeline playhead on the specified frame, and in the inspector, edit the value. Let's try it again. Cute. Set each keyframe, yep. Edit the Y position, yep. Select record again to stop, yep. Scrub the timeline, and preview, yep. Never forget to save the prefab, which means applying the overrides of the prefab instance from the scene to the source prefab stored in your project folder. So in order to do that, in the hierarchy, select the sneaky chicken. Then we have overrides, and click on apply all. Overrides, apply all. So that basically saved our prefab that we're working on. Cool. And then we save. Select play at the top of the editor layout to play your cinematic and see the result. Chicken. In this tutorial, we'll create a sequence asset variant from the sequence asset we just animated to see how we can test variations of the same content directly in the context of the movie. You might want to test variations in the animation. This tutorial will create a sequence asset variant from your previous sequence asset and see how to swap between the two of them in context of the movie. Chicken. First, let's start by creating a sequence asset variant. In the sequences, select SO1 and in the sequence assembly window, in the character section at the right of the sneaky chicken, click on the action menu and select create new variant. Looks like we have to select the sequence itself. And that's when these show up on the right side in our sequence assembly. And so now I want to create new variant for sneaky chicken. Add variations to the sequence asset variant. Now that you have a variant of your original sequence asset, you can safely edit its animations to add some variations. We'll select SO1 in the timeline window in the sneaky chicken track, double click on the sneaky variant timeline clip, and then we double click on the animator. In the animator track header, click the record button. 96 will do 10. Let's do. My rotation to 10. Okay. 135, negative 20. Frame 135. Okay, so this is wrong. So I'm going to make sure to add that to my notes. They basically put Y position here when it should say Y rotation. Okay. Click the record button again to stop the recording and scrub the timeline to preview. And then it tells me to save. Now he's rotating. All right, and then to save, we go to my prefab variant, and we have an override, but it says no override. Huh. I have my variant, but it's not, doesn't say I need to save it, so I guess it might have already saved. Looks like the original is untouched, whereas the variant does that little rotation. So looks like we're good. Swap variants and choose the best one. So now we can swap them. In the timeline window, move the playhead so you can see it. And we just did this. Swap between the original and Sneaky, and notice the immediate result. Now that we've created our cinematic animation on top of the sample movie, the next step is exporting it to share with others. Technical issue. And now we export the final cut. In this final tutorial, you'll export your final cut to a video file. You'll also see how to export other types of data. We've created our own short cinematic animation within the sample movie. In this final tutorial, you use the recorder to export a video of the sequence you edited. Then you'll export other types of data from the movie. A Alembic animation file of the Mitchell character, and arbitrary output variables, such as albedo, normal's depth, and motion vectors. So let's try exporting a video of the sequence. To export your edited sequence to a video file, from the Sequences window, open the recorder. Right-click on S01 and choose Record As. Okay. In the recorder window, ensure the recorder list. Might want to clear it. Okay. In the left plane, click on the option menu and select clear recorder list. I didn't have to do this. So it says if it is not empty. Click on add recorder and select movie. In the movie recorder settings, in the format section, select media file format. This is, I think, wrong. Because I don't have that option. What? Output format. So start recording button. Okay. It's currently recording. Actual recording starts when the playback reaches. So it should automatically stop at the end here. Okay. Movie recorder settings in the output file, select the output location at the right of the path. Locate the output file. Okay. Export the Mitchell character animation to an Alembic file from the sequence window. Open the recorder, right click on S01, and choose record as. Clear. In the Alembic recorder settings, in output file, capture settings scope, select target branch. Hierarchy, expand the S01 game object, and then expand Mitchell S prefab. Drag and drop in the variant. And click on Start Recording. The editor starts to play back the cinematic in play mode from its beginning. Oh. It'll automatically stop. Cool. Output file, select the output location right of the path section and locate it. You can export various AOVs from your movie content. This mainly includes data related to the material, geometry, depth, motion, or light. This step shows you how to do the export in JPEG, so you can see the result more easily through any basic image viewer. For example, to export an image sequence of the albedo with the true colors from the 01 sequence, if you close the recorder, reopen it from the sequences window, right-click, and choose Record As.
I love lamp.
Okay. Add recorder AOV image. Deprecated. In the AOV recorder settings, in Capture AOV to Export, select Albedo. Click on the Start Recording button. The editor starts to play back the cinematic in play mode from its beginning, but the actual recording starts when the playback reaches the target sequence. The recording automatically stops at the end of the target sequence, and the editor exits play mode. In the AOV recorder settings, in the Output File section, select the output and the right of the path. Cool. Uh-oh. I shouldn't have alt-tabbed. It's trying to catch up in Unity. Oh no. Remind me not to alt-tab while I'm playing a cinematic. Alright, I'm gonna take a quick commercial break. I did mute it, sorry. I muted it because the animation was still playing in the background. And so that was the easiest way to just step away, was just mute everything. And yeah, Panda Pops, they did update their terms of service for Twitch like 2-3 months ago, to where you're not supposed to restream, but they're not really enforcing it. Now, I am not giving advice by any means, but you know, for small creators like us, I don't think it's a big deal. And for what it's worth, Critical Role, whom is one of the top like 100 earners on Twitch, currently still restreams to multiple platforms, namely just YouTube. I think they're just doing Twitch and YouTube. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, I mean, if they're not even enforcing it, whatever. And yeah, Ikion, you didn't get any luck? Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I wasn't able to enter either. Welcome back. Go West. Yomi and oh yeah, I guess it, because it's on cooldown.
What? Wait, what? What?
Nervex, what are you testing? Got land near Slipknot. Panda, aren't they in their 50s and 60s? How old is Slipknot? '52. I guess you can be vulgar and weird at any age, huh? To be honest, though, I loved Slipknot when I was in high school. Dude, 76. He's a legend, a living legend, Panda. Didn't see your message depend on your second browser. Oh, all right, Nervix. It looks like it's going through. But yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all, Nervix. Okay, so I'll check, make sure these files came out. It looks like they did. Nice. That has its uses. Alright, so I think that was the end of the tutorial. Start again. Alright, well, I do have another tutorial I wanted to go through. And so, this one's a little bit on the longer side. I don't think we'll finish it. But in this project, I'm going to go ahead and open up the main project I work from, or will be working from. And we're going to be just kind of like going through the basics of HDRP. HDRP is, for those of you that don't know, translates to the high definition render pipeline. So with Unity, if you were to make a mobile game, you would want the universal render pipeline, which is URP. And so these are two different pipelines where certain animations, visual effects, lighting are applied in different ways. So with the HDRP, what I plan to do is make some cinematics that are taking advantage of the high quality, high definition visual effects and lighting, which are not intended to be used for game production. They can be used for game production, but they are not optimized for that. Instead, they're optimized more for like a cinematic experience. And so, we're going to be opening up Unity. So this is the Unity project that I was more or less experimenting with. And I've had to adjust a few things a few times, but I've imported a lot of assets that I plan to use. So you can see that they do kind of load in and out. That's helpful for rendering things that are, let's say, behind the camera or too far away from the camera. And so it's worth mentioning I did not make any of these assets. I purchased them to be used in games and movies. Scenes. Thanks, Panda. And yeah, I mean, I personally have been purchasing Humble Bundles. Pretty much every time there's a Humble Bundle, I pick it up. But this is a sneak preview at a character that, if you're a fan of Dungeons & Dragons, you would, or Critical Role specifically, you'd understand who he is. This is Ford. And so, more or less, I spent a long time adjusting like the skin, hair. I even got blend shapes up and running. So the last month or so, I've been reteaching myself character creation, so more like a modeling experience. And then also getting this imported into Unity. So we can see here he has all of these various morphs. And so my plan is to animate him. So, just show an example. Like if I wanted him to smile here. Puff out his cheeks. And so it's very subtle, but all of these in combination will make unique animations. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes here. And yeah, I won't reveal too much, but I've learned how to do lip syncing. So like motion capture, really. And so now I'm trying to set the scene, and then that's why we went through the animation tutorial today, so that I could learn how to, you know, set up a sequence. But today, we're going to be learning the basics. We're going to get up and running with HDRP. So in this project, we're going to be using the Spotlight Tunnel project. Okay, so they're telling me I need to download a project. Crap! Techniques learned in this project can be applied to any HDRP project. I think maybe I'll visit this one over the weekend or so, because I don't have the project itself. Looks like I gotta download it. Well, in that case, let's try and make some Unity, make terrain. I'd rather start with this today.
One of the most fun parts about creating levels for a game is making your own terrain. Luckily, Unity has tools designed specifically to sculpt, paint, and detail terrain within the Unity editor, and these tools have recently been updated with a lot more features. Now, we're making this video fairly early on in the development process of these features, since we think it's a nice way for you guys to try out the tools and help improve on them. In fact, after we did a video on the new input system, we talked to some folks at Unity, and they've really taken a lot of the feedback from the comment section and are already implementing a lot of it into the next version, which is just super cool. So without further ado, let's start making some terrain. Also, this video is sponsored by Unity. Now, let's get to it. So first of all, you need to make sure that you're using Unity 2019.1.5 or later. Now with that, we can go to Window and open up the Package Manager. Here we need to make sure that we have all packages selected and go under Advanced and select Show Preview Packages. At the time of recording this video, the terrain system is still in preview, and we should be able to search for it here and find Terrain Tool.
Okay. We'll make sure we have terrain tools, which I'm pretty sure we do. Terrain tools, install.
As you can see, I'm using version 1.1.4. Now let's go ahead and install this. Unity is going to import the package, and that's pretty much all the setup we need to do. However, Unity has also created a package on the asset store with some sample terrain assets. In fact, that's what they're linking to right here. Now I'm not going to click this. Instead, I'm just going to go directly to the asset store tab. Remember, you can always find this under Window, Asset Store, and I'm simply going to search for the terrain sample assets. The pack is right here. As you can see, it's free. I'm simply going to download that. And the cool thing about this pack is that it features more brushes that you can use while sculpting and painting, as well as some cool sample textures that we can try out. Now let's hit import and import again, and we are now completely set up. As you can see in our assets,
Faster. Yeah, Ikion. Where's my 3 times speed? This is what I was looking for, but I do not see it. Sample asset pack. Okay.
and painting, as well as some cool sample textures that we can try out. Now let's hit import and import again, and we are now completely set up. As you can see in our assets here, we now have a folder called samples with all of the terrain tools, including brush textures, terrain brushes, layers, and so on. Super cool. So now it's time to create a new terrain. And we can do this really quickly by simply right-clicking on a hierarchy, going through the object, and selecting terrain. And right away, this...
So... found it. There's a link inside. Okay.
And we can do this really quickly by simply right-clicking in a hierarchy, going through the object, and selecting terrain. And right away, this is going to spawn in a huge piece of terrain into our scene. Now I'm just going to go ahead and disable the example assets in our sample scene here, since we're not going to be needing them. So that is one way to very quickly create terrain. However, there's another way. If we delete this piece of terrain, and instead go to Window, Terrain, we can use the Terrain Toolbox. And the Terrain Toolbox is a new window that allows us to easily set up terrains with specific settings, change settings on multiple existing terrains at once, and just overall smooth out the process of working with terrain. So I'm simply going to take this and dock it next to the inspector over here. And as you can see, we have some parameters here for the width, length, and height.
So I don't get that. I don't have that. Sorry. Oh, here it is. Terrain toolbox. We'll put it right here for now. Yeah, Ikion, I do find myself going back a lot for, you know, specific key moments in videos when I'm on 2 times, but I feel like I can skim a lot more efficiently, for sure. Like, even though I do have to go back sometimes, the time I do save by skimming
we can
certainly
use the
helps.
terrain toolbox. And the terrain toolbox is terrain, and instead go to Window, Terrain, we can use the terrain toolbox. And the terrain toolbox is a new and just have some parameters here for the width, length, and height of our terrain. You can set these to whatever you want. I'm just going to leave these as is, and remember, everything can be changed later. So let's go ahead and hit create. And as you can see right away, it creates a terrain within our scene. I'm going to go back to the inspector here, and let's have a look at what has happened here. So if we go to our project, first of all, we now have a terrain.
Okay. Right now I'm trying to import stuff and it's taking a while. Still importing. Still importing. Here's my website. It's a work in progress, but I've been thinking about it. Like, what do I want to add to it? So I'll probably have like a blog. I'll have a reference to the wiki page. Way to contact me. It's been a long time coming. I've made several websites for myself in the past, but I just and this is actually something I'm somewhat proud of because it's told me that I'm not stagnant, but I have made at least like 5 career swaps. And just like trying new things has been like not just a hobby, but me trying to find what I'm passionate about. Would you like? I have thoughts. Believe it or not, I have thoughts. But yeah, probably the devlog. And then I'm considering starting like a medium or a newsletter about how to convert from being a gamer to being a game dev. Because I find that that's something I'm passionate about. Because I think a lot of people spend way too long playing video games simply because they don't have anything else to do. You know? Man, it's still importing assets right now. Alright, let's watch this video.
And within this, we have a terrain data object. This stores all the information about our terrain, such as where there are hills and slopes, and what textures we apply. You can also see that it's gone ahead and created an object in the hierarchy.
Society was more adapted to us searching ourselves and stuff, right, Ikion? You're absolutely right, Ikion. Personally, I've had a really supportive family that has allowed me to, you know, have wiggle room. Because I have worked full-time. I would say majority of, you know, my professional career, I have been working full-time. But the last, basically since COVID started, I've kind of been like coasting on my savings. And so COVID started like mid-2020. And then Sandbox happened and I was able to earn some income from that. And now I'm, you know, working with the council sporadically. But yeah, I've always been exploring hobbies and trying to find what drives me. You sound robotic for a bit? It might be me. It's probably me. It looks like it's good now. Thank you, Nervex. And Ikion and Panda. But yeah, personally, I had a lot of support from family to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, you know? So I can't complain.
Key. In fact, it's both created a terrain group and within this a terrain object. This object has two components, the terrain component, which is used to configure our terrain and used to change our sculpting and painting settings, as well as a terrain collider, which creates a collider so that physics objects will interact with our terrain. So at this point, we are ready to start sculpting our terrain. I really recommend that when you're working with your terrain, you go to the top of the scene here and make sure to disable fog so you can see everything.
Thanks, Ikion. Thanks,
also go to
Nervex.
lighting and make sure that auto-generate light maps is turned off. So with that, let's get painting.
Okay, so we want to turn off in lighting. Is it done importing? Nice. Well, it's waiting for me to click a button.
And that you also go to terrain. So at this point, we're a terrain created a terrain group used to configure our terrain and used to change our sculpting and painting settings, as well as a terrain collider, which creates a collider so that physics objects will interact with our terrain. So at this point, we're ready to start sculpting our terrain. I really recommend that when you're working with your terrain, you go to the top of the scene here and make sure to disable fog.
Okay. Too talented. Need you doing what you need to do. Thanks, Nervex. You know, I think talent will never outweigh experience. And this goes for anyone in life. Like, anyone can do anything. And sure, some people might have talent, but that's just
I love lamp.
a starting point. Like, you can't just be talent. You have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort. You gotta work. And so that's something I've had to tell myself. Simply because I've been told I'm talented, but that it isn't what pays the bills. Alright, why does it keep saying the lamp? Does it keep saying the lamp? But yeah. Okay, so then we have to go to lighting and make sure auto generate is turned off. We'll add a new scene here. This will be my scene 00. Scene 00 underscore lighting. Product of practice. Oh, true that, Nervex. That's a good way to phrase it. Product of practice.
So you can see everything clearly, and that you also go to lighting and make sure that auto-generate light maps is turned off. So with that, let's get painting. So the first thing that you want to do is go ahead and select the paint terrain tool here, and with that selected we get a bunch of options. First of all, we want to make sure that we have raise or lower terrain selected. Here we can choose between all of the different brushes that we can use. I'm just going to choose an ordinary soft brush, and if I just hover over my terrain now and try and press, we can see that I can start sculpting. To the right here you can change brush settings such as strength and size, or you can do
Okay. Looks like my brush strength was too high. Oh. Yeah, it works.
So using shortcuts. The shortcut for strength is A, so if I hold down A here, I can adjust how much strength I want to apply with my brush. In other words, how much do I want to sculpt the terrain by holding down my mouse. I can also
Okay.
also adjust the size of my brush by holding down S.
It's easy to click off. That's the only problem.
And simply dragging here, now I have a much larger brush and can make much larger changes to the terrain. Let's try out a bit more of an interesting brush here, and if we hold down D, we can also rotate it in any way that we'd like. You can see just how easy it is to add in detail with brushes like these. And of course, all these shortcuts can be changed using these shortcuts. Editor. Another cool thing is that if we hold down Control, we can invert, which allows us to lower the terrain. I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of my brush here, and if we go ahead and change the spacing, we can change how much distance we want between each individual brush stroke. We can also use scattering to add random scatter to our brush, which can lead to some pretty interesting effects. Now all of this is just by raising and lowering the terrain. We also have other paint modes here, such as set height, which allows us to set the terrain to a certain height. Down here we can see the height that we're setting to. Let's try and change this to something like 90. Let's do a soft brush. Let's increase the size of this brush. As you can see, we're now setting everything that we paint to this height. Really cool. We also have another mode called smooth height. This can also be accessed from other tools by simply holding Shift, because it's something that you use fairly frequently, and it simply allows us to, well, smooth out parts of our terrain. Now this here is pretty extreme. We can of course adjust the brush strength as with anything else to reduce the impact, but it will definitely smooth out the terrain. Really cool. Another cool mode is under Sculpt, and it's called Noise. And as the name suggests, this simply allows us to paint noise onto our terrain. We can go ahead and adjust settings for the noise down here. Most importantly, we can adjust the scale of our noise. Let's translate it to something like 20 by 20 by 20. And as you can see, I can now start to paint in this noise on top of our terrain. This really easily allows us to add cool detail to our terrain. Especially if we go ahead and increase the strength a bit, you can see just how easy it is to create interesting results. In fact, under these modes, you have a lot of really cool options to achieve certain effects, or just add life to your terrain. For example, under sculpt here, we also have the bridge mode, which allows us to control click on a start point. Let's choose this one. And then click on another place of our terrain to create a bridge across it. This is super easy for creating, well, bridges or roads and can lead to some really interesting effects. Another cool
This is a lot easier than I thought it would be. School run time for Panda. Drop the kids off with their grandparents. Have a great day. Thank you, Panda. I'll see you next time.
thing is terrace, which, as the name suggests, will divide our terrain into terraces or...
Ooh, cool. Let's try it. Basically turn this bridge into like steps.
layers. We can adjust the terrace count in order to change the appearance of this effect, but it's definitely really handy if this is the look you're going for. There are also some really cool brushes called erosion brushes. You can see there's hydraulic, thermal, and wind. I'm going to select hydraulic here, which erodes the terrain according to fluid simulation. You can of course change some settings about that simulation down here, but if I just go ahead and paint, you can see how this is kind of smoothing and flattening out the terrain, just like it would be if it was exposed to water over a long
So I learned how to do this the other day. Making an ocean. It's pretty cool. Oh, it's loading. Loading. It's not loading.
Longer period of time. Really cool. And these are just some of the modes. Honestly, there are so many more that I definitely recommend you play around with. Now, if you're working on the terrain and realize some of your settings are off, well, then you can always go to the last cog tab here, which is the terrain settings. You can adjust a bunch of different things, including our mesh resolution. Again, the width, length, and height of our terrain. And in fact, one thing that I recommend is scaling your terrain to be larger while working on it. In fact, I found bumping up your resolution on the width, length, and height to over 2000 while working on the terrain is really, really nice. And then you can always go ahead and decrease it later, and it will still keep a lot of the detail. Remember, if you need to adjust settings on multiple terrains, you can always use the terrain toolbox to do that. You don't have to go to each one individually. Now, another cool thing about the terrain system is that it allows us to string together multiple terrain tiles. This is cool because you don't always want your terrain to be completely square. So if we go to the first button here, we can create neighbor terrains. And we do this simply by clicking. And as you can see, the really cool thing about this is that height data is going to transfer seamlessly onto the terrain. In fact, we can go ahead and create neighbor terrains on all sides here. And if we go in here, we can now start to paint across all of these different terrains. So if I just go in and raise and lower the terrain, you can see that I can do so on multiple terrains at once. Awesome. Now for this to work, you need to make sure that all of your terrains are sharing the same group ID. As you can see, all of these terrains have a grouping ID of 0. And they also all need to have the same resolution. Just a heads up. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete all of these new terrains here and just try and focus on this single one. So the next part of the process is painting. And we also do that, of course, using the paintbrush, but we need to change the mode to paint texture. And when painting onto terrain, we are working with what is called terrain layers. And as you can see, currently there are no layers here. So let's go ahead and hit edit terrain layers. And here we can either create a layer or add an And when painting onto terrain, we are working with what is called terrain layers. And as you can see, currently there are no layers here. So let's go ahead and hit edit terrain layers. And here we can either create a layer or add an existing layer. Let's try and create one. This is going to open up a panel where we can select a texture. I'm just going to go ahead and select a simple dirt texture. This is from the terrain samples pack. I'm going to double click on it, and right away you can see that it's added this texture as a terrain layer. You also see that we now have an object in our project called new layer. Let's go ahead and call this one dirt layer. And in here we have settings such as the diffuse map. We can also input a normal map. So I'm going to go ahead and input the dirt normal here, as well as a mask map where I'm going to put the dirt mask. We can adjust stuff like metallicness and smoothness in here, and you can see it applies to our entire terrain, and of course also texture tiling. And if we zoom in, we can see that the texture is actually here. It's just being tiled a whole bunch, so we can go ahead and of course adjust the tile size here to kind of change that around. But of course right now we only have a single layer. Let's go ahead and add some more. So I'm going to hit add layer here, and I'm going to select some of the ones that are already in the sample assets. I'm going to select rock. I'm also going to add a sand layer, a scree layer. Let's add some snow. And some moss. And at this point, we're ready to just start painting. So I'm going to increase the size of my brush here. You can play around with the opacity, and I'm going to start adding rock to my mountains. I'm also going to add some moss in here, just kind of scatter it around. Again, guys, this is not going to be pretty, just showing off the tools. I'm going to add a tiny bit of scree in here. Let's add some sand along the sides. Don't ask me why there's sand on the top. And finally, we're going to paint in some snow, just a tiny bit at the top of these slopes here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and use a different brush so that we can kind of scatter this around. Again, not going for any awards here. And there you go. It's that easy to start sculpting and painting a terrain with these tools. I should also mention that the Unity environment team is working on a brush pack for texturing that is scheduled for 2019.2, so we'll have more cool brushes. And I know I haven't touched on these two icons here. They are for painting trees and foliage onto your terrain. Now, this is for another video. Just know that the option is here and that it works very similar to painting textures. And finally, I just want to show you one of my favorite features, which is the ability to create a terrain from a height map. Now, if you don't know what a height map is, I have an example of it right here. As you can see, it's a black and white image that stores height information. White parts are high, black parts are low. And there are a lot of free height maps online. I would definitely recommend just doing a quick search for height map, and just by going to images, you can see just how many are readily available here. Now the format of your height map needs to be .raw. You can use a photo editing software like Photoshop or GIMP to export as RAW in case you find a JPEG or PNG or any other format. In Photoshop it's as easy as going File, Save As, and selecting Photoshop RAW. In fact, I've gone ahead and prepared a heightmap.raw right here. Let's simply drag this into Unity to import it. We then go to the terrain toolbox. Let's create a new terrain, but let's do so by importing a height map. So I'm going to check this checkbox right here. I'm going to select a height map file. Simply clicking this, I'm going to browse. any other format. In Photoshop, it's as easy as going File, Save As, and selecting Photoshop Raw. In fact, I've gone ahead and prepared a height map.raw. I'm going to select a height map file. Simply click by importing a height map. So we then go to the terrain toolbox. Let's create a new terrain, but let's do so by importing a height map. So I'm going to check this checkbox right here. I'm going to select a height map file. Simply clicking this, I'm going to browse to the height map. And as you can see, we can change the height resolution. This doesn't have to be the same as the height map. You can make it a greater resolution if you want. I'm just going to keep it at 512. We can then remap our height map in any way that we'd like. I'm just going to make it less tall here, so I'm going to decrease the max. We also need to make sure that we aren't creating this in the same grouping ID as our previous terrain, so I'm going to set this to 1. And let's now try and hit create. And as you can see, it's going to spawn this right on top, but we've now created a terrain based on that height map. And I think it looks really, really cool. And height maps are just really great to use. They're really easy to get inspired by and just gives you a really solid base to work off of. Finally, once you've created the terrain that you'd like, simply go back into lighting and re-enable auto generate, and it's then going to generate a light map for your terrain. Awesome. That's pretty much it for this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Also, if you want to learn more about terrain, we will of course have a link for that in the description. On that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.
Hey VVox, what's up? What else do I want to do? I mean, we can practice a little bit with trying to make a cinematic here. It's a little bit larger. just want to import. Oh, my cat is yelling at me. Okay. A lot of recompiling here. Basically, I'm trying to import other assets or plugins, I guess you could say. And it's recompiling everything. Keep posing to victory. I'm not getting the correct angles here. Why is that? Everything's like reversed. Alright, I'm not gonna worry about it. Hmm. There. Lots of installing. Lots. We're probably going to be wrapping up pretty soon here. I feel like I learned a good amount about the timeline and the sequencer today. Then we did do some terrain building. Very simple stuff. Yeah, Nervix would be excited to hear your progress. Is there anything you're looking to make, or I'm sure you have ideas, but if you have anything in mind. So right now it feels so lost, but these tutorials do help put things in perspective. So like starting an animation, for example. I had no idea where to start. But that tutorial, I think, really helped me. Oh yeah, Nervix. I have no idea how long this is going to take to make an animation, but I'm feeling hopeful. I think if I really set my mind to it, I could probably make a short clip in a matter of a week. Me personally, and I'm sure you and others can relate, is like I want to make something high quality, and that ends up making something that takes a week take a month or longer. But as long as I'm proud of it, I'd be happy. Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, or I guess you could say this is unsolicited advice, I would say start with a super small project. I think a lot of creators, especially in games, have these big ideas, but you have to start with like actionable small portions of it in order to build up to it. To be able to document your progress is pretty big too. So for example, if you're trying to make a let's just say like a Go Fish matching game, well, start with each individual portion of that game rather than just like saying I'm gonna make a Go Fish matching game. Say like I'm gonna match, A plus A, like as small as possible. I hope that makes sense, but that's kind of like what I have to tell myself is like I need to do this step by step. Step by step. Anyway, thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you have a nice weekend. I don't have plans to stream, but if you're looking for something to watch, keep your eyes on Discord. But I'm sure I'll be back Monday. We'll be working more on the sandbox stuff. I'm still waiting to hear back from the Game Maker Fund before I work more on Eon. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some coffee. That sounds nice. Thank you, Nervex. You too. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you soon.